Hi, my name is Kedar, and you're watching RPTV. Regent Park was lit up by the launch of Niizh, a play by award-winning Anishinaabe playwright Joelle Peters. The community gathered to celebrate this Indigenous story at the event, organized by Playwrights Canada Press as part of the Toronto Lit Up program. Joining Peters in the discussion were Keith Barker, a Métis playwright and artistic director at Native Earth Performing Arts, and Desiree Lavergne, the director of Niizh. Together, they emphasized the importance of bringing Indigenous stories to the stage, offering a platform for voices often overlooked in mainstream media. This event reflects the vibrant and inclusive spirit of Regent Park, where cultural exchange and community connections are central to fostering understanding and unity.
Hello, folks. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us for this lovely, intimate chat. Thank you so much for joining us. And welcome to the Toronto Lit Up book launch for Niizh by Joelle Peters. Woo! Yes. This story is described as a love letter to community. And today I'm reminded that community is not an arbitrary word, but holds a very special purpose for those seeking mutual support, joy, laughter, and love during these challenging times. To quote Joelle Leon, it is not for the egoic need to feel validated by others. Community is about building real accountability, real trust, and real pathways towards a liberated people. So we encourage everybody joining us today to find active ways to help uplift your own communities, either big or small. We've provided a QR code that's on the book sale table over here that goes directly to a donation link for Toronto Indigenous harm reduction, which aims to reduce harm around stigmatized experiences resulting from racism and colonization. Today we've donated $200 to their organization. So if you have capacity, we encourage you to make a donation as well. Whatever you make will make a huge difference. So, some thank yous, many thank yous. I'm going to talk for a little bit so you folks can relax. Many thank yous for today's event, the Toronto International Festival of Authors and the Toronto Arts Council. This launch event is part of an amazing program, the Toronto Lit Up program, which is, you see this lovely banner beside us here, which is designed to spotlight new works and empower Toronto's writers. So you can learn more about this program, but also upcoming events that are also happening at festivalofauthors.ca/Toronto Lit Up. And we also have a bunch of pamphlets and bookmarks all around the space here if you're interested in that program. And every event is free, like this one, so they're really worth going to. A huge thank you to Daniel Spectrum for letting us use the space and the staff supporting our event. We want to thank, obviously, our caterers, T and Bannock, and a huge thank you to Native Earth Performing Arts for helping us organize this event and letting us program this on the opening day of Wasaga Begins to Dance, the annual festival that showcases and celebrates new Indigenous theater, dance, and multidisciplinary works. This is such a special festival that everybody in the theater community, performing arts community looks forward to every year. So it really is an honor for us to be part of your program here today. The festival is running from today until December 1st, so please take a look at the exciting lineup of events and book your tickets at nativeearth.ca. And Playwrights Canada Press is also returning to set up a book booth with big discounts next Thursday, November 28th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the lobby. And finally, I want to thank the esteemed panel of artists participating in today's event, who I will introduce in just one moment. Personally, I have a very fond memory of going to see this production of Niizh. Here, I dragged my friends out to a theater outing, and it was definitely the right choice, as I was just so taken by how funny, heartfelt, and refreshing this story was. So we're so glad it's now in print. It's very meaningful to us, and now for so many others to enjoy. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the artists who we'll be talking with about this special play and production. So moderating today's discussion is award-winning playwright Keith Barker, a member of the Métis Nation of Ontario. He is a playwright, actor, and director from Northwestern Ontario. He's the director of the Forster Bernstein New Play Development Program at the Stratford Festival and is the former artistic director of Native Earth Performing Arts. Playwrights Canada Press published 2 of his plays, which I actually have at the book table if you're interested. This is How We Got Here, which won the Dora Award for Outstanding New Play, the Carol Bolt Award, and a finalist for the Governor General's Award. And The Hours That Remain, which won a Saskatchewan and Area Theatre Award for Excellence in Playwriting and a Yukon Arts Award for Best Art for Social Change. Amongst many accolades, he also recently won the 2023 Joanna Metcalf Prize. Please welcome Keith Barker. Okay, and then joining us on the panel is the original director of the production of Niizh, Desiree Leverens. Desiree is a theater director, creator, mover, and shaker who will never wash Treaty 6 soil from beneath her feet. She exists here to bring questions and reveal stories and conversations for artists and audiences alike so that we can all dream of a better future together. Desiree is attracted to epic stories, epic in content, in aesthetic, and in spirit. She's received institutional education from the University of Alberta and York University and has directed in large institutions and quiet back alleys. Desiree has a particular affinity for working on art that is devised in nature and loves to play with traditional text in a way to transform ideas and institutions that are no longer serving us. Please welcome Desiree Leverens. Thank you. And someone who will be joining us a little bit later, once we can get him out of tech rehearsal next door, is one of the actors from Niizh, who originated the role of Sam, Cole Durnford, so you're going to be seeing him later on. So Cole is a Métis actor, playwright, and creator, originally from Stony Plain, Alberta. A graduate of Toronto Metropolitan University, Cole received a Dora Award nomination for his performance in Mixtapes Project's Killing Time. Cole's first play, Echo, was recently produced at Next Stage Theatre Festival. He is a Native Earth Performing Arts 40 Seeds for 40 Years creator for his new play, Skyscraper. He is a member of A Front Company, a collective focused on creating distinctly young, live, and bold theatrical experiments. And then finally, it's my pleasure to introduce the reason why we're all here, the author of this incredible, incredible book you see in front of you, Joelle Peters. So Joelle, yes, woo! And Joelle is an award-winning Anishinaabe actor and playwright working in theater, television, and film, and is the current artistic director of Native Earth Performing Arts. Her plays include Niizh, Frozen River, co-written with Michaela Washburn and Carrie Costello, which we also have at our book table as well, if you're interested. And Do You Remember? Joelle has performed at theaters and festivals across the country, including the Stratford Festival Summer Works, Thousand Islands Playhouse, Western Canada Theatre, and more. She can be seen in the hit TV show Shoresy, the film In Her City, and Web of Lies. And in 2020, Joelle was selected as the playwriting protege for the Siminovich Prize by laureate Tara Bagan. Please welcome Joelle Peters. Thank you. And I'll hand things over to our moderator.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I guess first question for me, is to start with you.
Okay.
Maybe talk about the spark. Talk about what made you want to write this play.
The spark. I think it was a lack of seeing stories like this. It was the continuation of important stories that, you know, talk about our trauma perhaps or hardships. And I don't want to steer away from those, but also I think we're at a place now that we can include stories about Indigenous joy and laughter and kind of blend it in a bit more.
When you talk about this story, can you tell us a little bit about this story? What makes it different?
I sure can.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a story about essentially the one-liner for me is it's an Indigenous coming-of-age rom-com. So seeing two characters perhaps in the beginning stages of falling for each other and also maybe leaving their community for the first time or coming back to community for the first time in a long time. So lots of big thinking lots of big questions and ideas, and thinking about like what is this? What am I doing? You know, as an 18, 19-year-old, not too sure which direction that you're going to go, and how the world will treat you. So that's a bit of the story. There's also some family stuff, and of course intergenerational trauma. Cause yeah.
And like the essence of the story though, how did it come to you? Was it watching movies? Was it what is the thing that made you start writing this actual story on the page?
It came from, I would say I was thinking a lot about the books that I used to read in high school. I was thinking about like the YA romance novels, and how they were often just not even BIPOC. So it was an attempt when I was in the Paprika Festival to craft a story where I could see Indigenous artists fall in love. And then from there, it really took form through a lot of different ways. I think it came here, and I was part of the Anishinaabe Creators Unit at Native Earth, and then I also worked on it through a couple different residencies. Like it took 5 years to come to fruition to where we are now, which is wild.
Do you want to maybe talk, before we get to Desiree, who's your eventual director, do you want to talk a little bit about Phelan and how Phelan and you worked on this together?
Totally. So Phelan Johnson, incredible. If you don't know her, so wise and funny and kind to me as an emerging playwright, because I didn't know a lot about writing when I started writing this. I knew story structure because I love to read, but aside from that, I don't have formal training. And Phelan, it was actually through Tara Bagan that I was introduced to Phelan, and she kind of just said like, you two should talk because I think you would understand each other. And sure enough, we did. And I just kept bringing Phelan back because it felt like she really understood me and the story that I wanted to tell. So the parallels between both of our lives, like living on the res, moving off of res into the city, and what that meant for both of us. And just there were so many parallels that it was really, really special to have that work with her in the early days, through a couple different opportunities. But by the time we got to directing, it started to move away from Phelan as the director, also because she is owned by a company. Kidding.
Kidding, not kidding.
But that was when I came to you, Keith, and I was like, I don't know who to direct this piece. I don't want to direct it. I don't know what I'm doing.
And you had some specifics about the director you were looking for.
Yeah, I really wanted it to be an Indigenous woman. I think like with perhaps the lack of a matriarch in the story, it needs to be a matriarch to help lift it up. And I think I also wanted someone who would get the humor. So I was so sold on Phelan. I was like, oh, I don't know, and I don't have any ideas. Keith, please help me. And it was also the like humor that I wanted them to get with the res experience, with the comedic timing of like all of these things I really wanted specifically. And then you said, do you know Desiree? And I didn't.
Which was, I was just going to say, like, it was like kind of serendipitous because we had just had a conversation. You were at maybe tell them how we met.
I don't know how we met.
Stratford? Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what the story is supposed to be. Yeah, we had met at Stratford.
You were doing the Langham?
Honestly, just a few months before. Yeah, I was doing Langham, which is like an assistant director program there. Keith was a really important resource for me to listen to my experience of what that was like, and yeah, what it also I think means to be a young Indigenous director in the city. Keith was in here, and I was saying how I just want to work on Indigenous work that's fun and joyful, and Keith said, yes, of course.
Yeah. Well, and I think we were working both, like I was being introduced to a large institution like Stratford, and you were in the middle of struggling of being in a large institution like Stratford.
Yeah.
And so seeing the struggle and understanding and the things that you really wanted to work on, the passion and the struggle of the piece we were working on also, I think and then within weeks, Joelle shows up and says, I'm just looking for someone with a good sense of humor, who would get it, who wants joy, who wants to bring it to the room, someone like Phelan. And I was like, oh, this is so, okay, well, you should meet each other. And then I never heard back from either of you. So maybe can you talk about this meeting and how you came together on this?
Yeah, I think it was
And how you forgot about me?
Yeah, we did. Sorry.
Okay, sure.
You know you do a good job, Len, right?
That's right. We never talked to you again.
No,
after.
you didn't.
We invited you to opening.
You did, and I came. It was great.
I think it really was just I sent Desiree an email, and I was like, I want to talk to you about something.
And that's all you said. You were like, hello. I would like to speak with you about something. Can you come to Native Earth? And I was like, sure. And we sat in the back because we wanted to be outside. And I was like, what is Joelle going to talk to me about?
Well, it was like, how do I, because I had 2 offers for you.
Yeah.
I was really taking Keith for his word and like, no, you want to know Desiree. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to assess Desiree's vibe. We're going to talk about like, I don't know, life experience and the way that you approach making art, telling stories, and see if it's a match. Because I think I'm a fairly decent read on people, I guess. And that's really what it was. Like, it was like a vibe check.
Yeah.
And so I was by the end of this like 2-hour hangout at the picnic table, I was like, do you want to direct my play?
Yeah.
And also, do you want to mentor at the festival?
Yeah.
So two jobs in one afternoon.
Yeah. It's theater's like that sometimes, you know? You have no jobs and then suddenly you have one outdoor conversation and you have 4.
Yeah, it was great.
Do you want to talk about, so how did you, so now you've agreed to direct the show. And so what were next steps? Like, can you walk us through how you came to be for first day of rehearsal?
Well, I think we have to go back a bit, Keith.
Okay.
Because the reason we are even in rehearsals to begin with is because you programmed it and then left the company.
Yep. Yeah, it was important, you know?
I want to.
Is there a question there?
I want to hear about. I would like you to share why you programmed it. What was your thought process? Did you know you were leaving when you?
No, not. It wasn't that. It wasn't planned like that. It's like, here's the thing: is that Joelle worked in our box office. You've been in shows. I've seen you in. I know you as an artist. You've been in Anishinaabe. I also was craving plays of joy and a love story and a rom-com, like you were speaking my language around that. When I read it, I was laughing out loud. I was talking to Phelan, she's like, Joelle's got something, we got to do this show. And I was like, okay, I trust Phelan, right, in that world. And part of it was you had been working on it for 5 years. We'd been trying to get a workshop, right? We had a bunch of different things happening, and we were trying to figure out how to give you a proper workshop. And there were other people involved and things happening. And then it was like, Isaac Thomas, who was the general manager, was like, we should just do it. Like, we should just do it. It's going to be, it'll benefit from a production. It may not be the oh, this is it production, but it'll be the first production. And then she'll feel like she can move forward with it and other people get a chance to see it. And so we were just excited to give you that opportunity. And then reading the play, like we had seen excerpts, we'd read pieces of it. It just was a no-brainer off the top. So to us, it was like, oh, this is, and we had really tried to embrace that year, all the things that we felt like, hey, what is what are the stories we want to put out into the world? Like you said, like there are important stories that Native Earth needs to tell and need to be the beacon of.
Yeah.
But there are other stories we need to be the beacon of, and other artists we need. And it was your first play, like here at Native Earth. And so, yeah, it was like super, it was like one of the easiest choices I ever made to a season. Yeah.
And then you were like, bye.
And then I was like, yeah, I don't want to be anywhere close to this thing. It's gonna blow. No. But it was also that this really incredible thing is to know that those things are put in place and you know they're going to be good. So you can leave a place, right? Like you're not like, oh, it's kind of on rocky ground and I got to step away. It was like, no, actually, I'm really quite happy and really excited. And it was excited, like, yeah, so.
Well, it's also, I guess, thank you for that. But I didn't know that I was coming in to be the artistic director either.
No, you didn't.
So surprises for both of us.
Neither did I, though. Right? And the whole conversation about how to get you there, about who was going to apply. Like I didn't know who we were handing it off to. But to me, it's like Isaac and I talked long about the work that we wanted to make sure we were handing off to someone was work that someone could get behind very easily. And so that was also.
That was a great season.
It was a great season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was quite proud of it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to you two. So now you've had a 2-hour conversation and you're moving forward. How do you get to first day rehearsal? Like, what's the process for you two?
We had to build our team, and this was also really the first time that Native Earth was after the pandemic coming into building our own show. The last one that we had built was 2019, which was your show, Keith.
Yep.
And there were lots of new big questions like, how do you even build a set? Where do you build a set? We don't have somewhere to build a set. We're not building it in the lobby. So things like that. It was also knowing we wanted as many Indigenous folks on the show. Like that was something we really agreed on. And then it was like, okay, so who's out there? Who do we know already? Who do we not know? I think I had the idea already for who I wanted to build the set, but outside of that, I don't think I had anyone.
Yeah, there was a few folks that I feel like you were like, I want to work with these people too. Even some of the casting, like we shuffled things around. You're like, I know I want these people, but not sure where.
Yeah.
And then we sort of collaborated. We were like, let's just get it as resi as possible. Like,
Yes.
how can we res it up?
Yes.
That was our goal.
It was.
And we did.
I think we did.
We did.
Yeah, it came together pretty well, I would say. And like with the new team taking over on staff at Native Earth, like everyone, it was a huge learning project. I mean, even Adam, like coming in, prepping the flowers every day before shows.
Yeah.
Like planting we had real flowers on the set. So making sure they're all perfect.
Yeah.
And what does Adam do here?
Oh, I'm one of the head techs.
There it is. And so we had a transition, right? Our head tech had left and there was a transition, right?
Yeah, but we now have Julia.
Yep.
And Julia brought in Adam, and like Julia's also done a really great job of bringing in other tech folks who get what we're trying to do at Native Earth. So it made the run, as much as we like didn't know what we were doing, it felt really good.
And honestly, the tech, like we really reimagined the studio space in a sort of configuration that's not very familiar to that space. If you didn't see the piece, it was in the corner. I'm just kidding. It was in the corner, and we were all sort of like, okay, yeah, we have like also so many brand new people, and like none of us had worked together before. I think all of us this was the very first time that like so many of us had worked together, even if we'd known each other, we hadn't been on a project together, from the creative team to the crew to everything. And yeah, we had a really smooth, like maybe one of the smoothest tech processes I've ever had. And we even had projections, and those never go smooth in tech. But we really had like a kind of energy that was just like, how are we gonna get it done? Like, what should we do? Oh, that thing doesn't work. Does anyone have another idea? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to find a balance too throughout the entire production of like, yes, I wrote it, and yes, I'm the artistic director now of the theater company that's putting it on, but how do I let them do the work that we've brought them in for? How do I like not micromanage my baby?
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part, right?
You did too. Like I remember you'd be like in rehearsals. Joel, you spent a lot of time in rehearsals with us. We were really lucky. And then during tech, you sort of started like going away, and we were like, where's Joelle? But yeah, we talked a lot about what that balance would be, especially as like when I don't know, I feel like when I'm directing a new work, I really want to talk to the playwright about what their relationship is to the process of it. Because I feel like part of my responsibility is to bring, especially for a premiere, it's like the vision that's on the page to life. And yeah, me and Joel talked a lot, like, who gives notes? Do you want to give notes? Do you want to give notes through me? Like, we really talked about what that relationship was like. And then Joelle had an added thing as the artistic director too. So she's like looking in on that with that brain as well. So there was lots happening for you.
Yeah, it got a
during
little
that
weird
process.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, okay, writer,
Yeah.
artistic director, those are the hats.
And then opening
Oh
weekend.
yeah, and then Joelle had to become the lead actor too of the piece because our lead, Teresa Cutknife, got COVID. And
Well, who's been in rehearsals all the time?
yeah, remember we were just saying Joelle was really a part of the process. She really knew the show well.
That's not why I wanted to be there, by the way.
just waiting until someone no. Yeah,
But it
you
was
started it.
It was kind of the most natural thing
It was.
to do.
Yeah.
It was like either cancel the opening weekend of shows, or Joelle goes on with the script.
Yeah,
So, I think we pulled it off.
yeah.
I saw it. I thought it was great. And I find that audiences in those situations are actually rooting for you. Like in that moment, they know, especially in a time of post-COVID, everyone's like, it's so great to be back, and isn't this great? And oh no, and the show goes on kind of thing. So it was great.
There was something special too for me about like having Joelle be able to read her words.
Yeah.
You know, there's something really special about what that means when we hear a theater artist who's created a script but meant to be read out loud in their voice. I think that there's something really special about that. So there's really something beautiful and magical about you getting to embody that character, I think. It had to happen, you know, like when we heard that Teresa was sick, we were all just like, Joelle? Like, I don't think we even talked about it.
No, not really.
Hey, there's Cole.
Hi, Cole.
Hey, so we're just in the moment. You're coming to pray, everyone. This is Cole. He was in the very first production. We're just at a point talking about opening weekend where Joelle stepped in.
Oh,
And maybe you want to talk a little bit about what that was for you, Joelle, being there in rehearsals, what your rehearsal process was, and then opening weekend. Talk about it.
Yeah, opening weekend. That was crazy. Yeah, but it was fun. It was like a fun little whirlwind, and nice to, I don't know, there's something nice about, like in a weird way, like when someone has to step in, because it kind of like depressurizes everything, and the audience really gets on board with you, I feel, and like
That's what Keith was just saying.
yeah, there's not like, I feel like there's less, almost in a way, pressure to be like good or perfect or something. It's more about like, okay, we're like telling this story, all like we're all trying to like be there together and uplift each other through the storytelling. So yeah, that was something I really loved about when you stepped in. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
For each one of you, I'd love to ask a question. For directing, what was your favorite part about directing and what was your most challenging? For you writing it, what was your favorite? What the easiest writing came, and what was the hardest part that you had to write? And for Cole, what was your favorite part of the play, and what was the part that you were struggled with?
Yeah.
We'll start with you. Could you-
Okay. My favorite part about the play, I don't know. Niizh was the first like Indigenous play I ever worked on, so it was like, though I feel like the whole experience was really profound for me. I felt really connected with my character Sam. He was returning to the res after being gone for 10 years, and it was sort of like really, it was personal for me because my family, like kind of my grandparents had left where they were from and had like become really disconnected from their Métis just roots and ways of knowing. So it was like really impactful to be the character, and he was so like graceful in the way that he stepped back into the res and like tried to learn from everyone. And I love doing that role every night and like getting to do that story. I feel like the also things that he found challenging within the story is what I found challenging too. There's like a lot of, I guess, imposter syndrome, and I don't know. I feel like shame and like just like a lot of things to work through on that journey. And I felt like there were a lot of like that being the first Indigenous play I ever worked on, there was so much learning for me to do and so much that I didn't know. And just, yeah, being in that room for the first time was such a blast and really, really hard at moments. And there was lots of learning to do at moments, but also that learning is good.
Yes. Good news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Desiree and then we'll end it. Oh, yes, sure.
Yeah. No problem.
Thank you. So Desiree.
Okay. The most, it's hard not to like answer this question like being like, everything was the easiest and everything was the hardest.
Yeah.
But it sort of is true. I think that when I was, I really wanted to like keep the energy of the res in the play. That felt really important to me. I think that like the journey of what it means to come back home, what it means to leave home, is integral to it. So like lots of the little details that like someone who maybe doesn't have lived experience on the res might not see, but all of those kind of like little details felt really important to us. And I think I was trying to, sometimes I think in like rehearsal or tech processes, sometimes the little details are like, well, it's not super necessary. Like we don't need that exact t-shirt. Like we could just wear like a different blue t-shirt. But I was like, no, we need the blue t-shirt that says Pepsi because it's funny. And I think that I don't often work at places that like support that kind of prioritizing, you know? And I know that like I'm sort of saying it as a joke, but also honestly, yeah, like truthfully, lots of the details, like we cooked real fish. That felt really important for us. We burned medicine. So those details were, for me, really difficult because there's so much of them, especially because it's a realistic piece. And they were also the most exciting parts that really, like, I don't know, felt like it kept us honest in a way. We're not like making an imaginary world. We were making something very real. And I'd never, ever seen a play that was set on the res before. I'd never seen a play that was set on the res. I've read them, but I'd never seen one. And so I think I felt a responsibility also like to my community about what it means to be sharing that with a wider audience.
Nice. And Joelle.
Yes. The
easiest part about writing this, and what did you struggle the most with in the writing?
Yeah. The first thing I wrote was when they meet. Their meet cute. When Lenna gets popped in the face and starts bleeding. And it's really awkward between them. And they're like, wait, but you're cute. But no, I don't know you. That was just really fun. And it came like so quickly to me. The building the story around it and deciding what else needed to be part of the story, that was hard. Because 5 years worth of writing, like not nonstop, but like 5 years worth of writing and more drafts than I can count. That was the hard part.
Yeah.
And like deciding what, when to stop, what to include, what to throw out. And even in the published version, I kicked something out from the production. I think yeah. You'll have to read it to find out. Surprise. Yeah, I think like there's so much, like the world in a good and a bad way, like it felt so expansive and it does feel really real. Like some parts are taken from real life on Walpole Island, but also trying to think about just what have I heard other First Nations folks talk about, or First Nation Métis like talk about when they're thinking of the res that they have in their mind. But at the same time, not trying to make it a place that everyone knows. Like it has like just enough specificity in it to be somewhere. But yeah, there was a lot of balancing, I would say. But
Did anybody? You talked about feeling of responsibility to honor the story or experience. Was there any pushback or any kind of, why do you have that, or why are you saying that in the play, or anything like that? Was there any dialogue around that?
I think the only one who pushed back against it was me. Like I feel like I got really lucky, and I and the piece were surrounded by so many people who wanted it to like keep going and move forward. That anytime I was like, oh, I'm thinking about writing another scene, but I don't know, I don't want to write anymore. And then people were just like, no, write it. Like that was something that Phelan and I talked about a lot. I was worried that coming in at, I think, 130 pages at the time, it was too much and I still had more to say. But she was like, no, just say it. And then you'll know after you've written it if it needs to be there. So that was really, really helpful in the early days. And even you, Keith, like you were just like, no, keep going.
Yep.
Figure it out. You'll know.
Yeah. Did you, audience reaction? Is there like an audience experience, engagement? Do you have any stories that you'd love to share?
I remember doing like a student matinee.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Yeah, me too.
I saw a smile ripple through yours. I was like, something happened.
Student matinee. We had one where I think they were like told to be like good and very like,
Probably.
where it was just like, I was like, I could not figure out like what was going on, if they were like hating it as they were experiencing and hating me, and I was like so in my head. And then we had another one lined up the next week, and I was like, oh my gosh, here we go again, this might be hard. And he's like, it was like an art school, and they were just losing their minds. The like love scenes were happening.
The kissing.
And actually screaming. Yeah, that was so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, hearing them like cringe in real time. It was so good. I was like, oh my God, it's working.
Yeah.
What I've written is working.
Yeah. I love when there was any time we had like res jokes in there, when someone would just like die with laughter in the audience, and like we'd be like pages pass and that person's still like having a cackle. That always got me.
Yeah.
In terms of what each of you have done here, do you have, when you're in rehearsals, when you're working on something, when you're writing something like this, directing something, acting, is there a piece of advice that you always hold true to, that someone has told you, or something that you know that guides you in these processes as you're going it, for anyone out here that's doing that kind of work?
think in these sort of processes, I try to listen more than I talk. That's always whenever I'm feeling like frustrated, or when I'm feeling like we're having a great day, or whenever I'm anything, I always try to like think about listening. Like what is that thing that we are actually trying to solve? What is that actual, what's going on? I think I'm always, trying to listen, especially in this piece. All of the actors had, the characters are so developed and so different, and our actors were so different. We work with some actors that had never been on stage before, and we worked with other actors who had just come out of a traditional theater training program. And that, I think, was part of the joy of it all. And I think that that's what I mean by listening, that like everybody has something to say, and everybody has wisdom. And so I think, listening is really important.
I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing. So I don't know if I have like advice for other people.
Joelle?
I think listening for sure. I also, I'm trying to learn how to not sell myself short. Like, I think oftentimes it's easy to get caught up in like seeing what other people are doing and get into like comparing your journey to theirs, but you can't do it. You can, but it's not going to serve you. So I'm really trying to just like focus on what I want to accomplish, and I would encourage other people as well who are starting this kind of journey to just think about really like, what do you want, not like what do people want you to do, because that's what you want is what's going to serve you.
Comparison is the thief of joy, they say. Right? So I think we have some time for questions. If anyone had a question they'd like to ask anybody up here. Oh, sort of, yep. So we'll start here. I'll go to you, and then we'll go to you. Yep.
I always have a question for playwrights, which is, what are you working on next?
What are you working on next? As a director, as a writer, and as an actor, what are you all working on?
What are you working on, Cole?
I'm a playwright as well. So I have a show that's coming up at Workshop West in Edmonton in the spring. It's called Horseplay. It's about a horse and a jockey trying to race in the Kentucky Derby.
It's so good.
And I'm doing a reading in there in 2 hours of Kenneth Williams' play Deserters. So you should come see that. I don't know if there's tickets actually, but
There might be a couple tickets if you go to the box office and ask.
Nice.
I always hate the question, what am I working on next? I'm trying to breathe and live. Like, I don't know.
Don't put me in a box.
Yeah. But I'm workshopping a piece with Pemmican Collective right now. It's called Entity, and we're developing new ways. This is why I'm like, hold on. We're developing new ways to create stories, so trying to not sit at our computers and write, but like develop in an embodied way, and we're working with technology and AI. So if you want to talk about ChatGPT.
Nice.
You're also working on becoming an expert bowler.
Okay, that's also true. Thank you. I find that more important than...
Yeah.
I have a bowling skill,
Yeah.
newly developed, but I do feel passionate about it.
Yeah.
Like with the hand, like small or
Yeah,
the
like-
three finger, like the whole.
Well, also, I just did the technique, and it just reminded me that at the bowling alley, I looked up the proper bowling technique so I could do good, and I did.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. What am I working on? I am working on breathing as well. I think that's a good practice. I think I'm also working on self-compassion, like similar to my answer before. I think that's always needed in an industry like this. And writing wise, I don't know why I had to show you, but writing wise, I am starting the beginning processes of a new TYA piece with the folks that I wrote Frozen River with. We have a new collective called the Sunbeam Collective, and it's going to be probably a bit on the darker side, but like it's for high school age students or people exploring Indigenous youth suicide. So it's a bit of a dark topic, but we are trying to find the hope within it.
Nice.
So yeah, figuring it out.
Great. You had a question, yeah.
My English second language, I was trying to explain what I know. For you work very hard, how you spend or recover after your work? One example, maybe amazing, or how you out of your work.
That's a great question for those in the back. She just said, like, you work really hard, so how do you recover? Like, what are the ways in which you recover after kind of expelling and working on stuff?
Bowling?
Yeah, I think that recovery really happened. Like for me, my job as a director is done opening night. I'm saying that quietly because there's actors on the other side of the stage that I know don't get this feeling. But for me, like that day after opening night is a rot day where you just don't do anything. But I want to say that part of actually, I think what made the process of Niizh so awesome was the Native Earth producing team, because we didn't do long days. Even in our tech, we had more breaks than I've ever had in my professional career. I think we never worked over 5 days in a row. So Native Earth worked really hard to create a schedule, and obviously that meant like more resources. We were in the theater for longer. Our tech took longer. But that meant that for me, at least, the burnout wasn't what I was used to, which might be working 12-hour days, sometimes like 18-hour days inside of a theater, like truly 18-hour days. And I'm not even the one that's there the longest. But that never happened on this process. We have like our late days might be like 10 p.m. And whoever was there like later than us would have a sleep in the next morning, you know? And so I think that part of it is about how you set up the working conditions too, so that you don't have to collapse and take a 2-week holiday just to recoup from working for a month.
Joelle?
Yeah, I'm still in the process of trying to figure out how I recover. I don't know. I think oftentimes it's a bit of like realistically disassociating. It's like, okay, I'm gonna watch TikTok for the next 30 minutes and just laugh at dog videos, or like send people memes. That's a lot of it. I think music for me is helpful to recover, just kind of maybe going for a walk and listening to music.
You go to a lot of concerts, too.
I go to a lot of concerts.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's in the show, too. I mean, it's not the hippest music, but like music is obviously a really impactful place for me to return to. Not even escape, it's like a returning. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm also still trying to figure that out. I think when you're an artist, I was saying this to Joelle earlier, like most people who work at 9 to 5 get their like joy and fulfillment outside of their 9 to 5, and that's where they that's where they like do the things that they want to do. But it's interesting when you're like doing theater, because usually it's because you're passionate about it and it like feeds your soul in some way. And I think that's, for me, that's when I've been burnt out in the past. I feel like it's because you put so much into it and you almost, like for me, I've forgotten to invest in the things that I like to do outside of my art practice. Hanging out with my friends and building good relationships and doing the things that I want to do and eating good food. I think a big part is just finding the things that I like to do outside of my art, and really being like intentional in the same way I would if I was doing a 9 to 5 and sitting in an office, and then getting out and being like, what do I want to do now? How do I want to build my friendships and my relationships? That's been a big learning arc for me that I'm still trying to figure out.
You should try bowling.
Yeah.
I got some good techniques.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say myself, I have a little dog, and I don't put earbuds in. I walk outside with nothing, just with a little dog that has to go for a pee, and we go for a long walk. We do it twice a day. The other thing is something outside of the arts, something that takes me away is I play hockey. I'm a terrible hockey player, but I love it. I play like I'm going to make the NHL, but I love it. But just something outside, and I'm in a room with a bunch of guys who have no idea what hockey is, what theater is. And so, I'm with a bunch of lawyers and a bunch of people around that it's just so disconnected from the theater world that it's actually refreshing, and you hear conversations that you don't hear in a theater. I can talk shop all day in the theater, and you step out. I also want to be able to talk to other people about other things. And so it's always great to be reminded that the outside world doesn't actually have any idea what we do. And we just be normal people and talk to the guy in the lineup at the local coffee shop. So it's always great.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. If anyone had a question. Hi, Georgia. Yes. Actually, 2 questions. So we'll start with you. Yep.
So I'm getting out of everything. Everyone's kind of a storyteller in their own right. They direct, they playwright, or they act. So what would you say each of the importance of storytelling towards you is the importance and kind of the process that you've come to being part of that?
So the question is, what is the importance of storytelling to you, and what is your process and how you do that? Okay. Yep. Anybody?
For me, like very, very personally, I feel like I grew up in like small town Alberta. I went to like a school with a bunch of hick country people, and I was like wanted to be a storyteller and felt like I was like a sensitive boy, I guess, and that made me feel like really like different and weird. And I think just like doing this kind of work for me is a way for me to like carve out space for myself, saying that I'm a sensitive person, I'm a caring person, I want to grow, I want to see, I care about being a good person myself, and it's like kind of embarrassing to say for some reason, but that's how I feel. And I think it's like an act of self-care in a lot of ways, like creating and telling stories. And I think a lot of the process for me is about just creating space for myself, giving myself lots of room where I can just sit with myself and think about where I'm at and think about what I'm feeling, and like honoring my feelings and loving my feelings and figuring out then how to share them and what can be communal about them and what I can share with other people about them. Yeah.
Joelle?
What is storytelling to me is the question.
Yeah.
Or the importance.
What is your process?
And what is my process? Gosh, okay. I think my process is a lot of listening. I think in like my day-to-day life, I'm always listening, whether it's to music or people on the street or the things in between. I listen more than I speak, usually. And I take that into a lot of different aspects of my life, including storytelling, but also leadership. Like I find there's so many different parallels that it can be useful for. I think as a storyteller, what's important to me is honoring whatever's at the root of the story that I am in. I think it's remembering or learning throughout the process why we're all gathered to work on this story. Like what is at this point in time, what is the significance of it? And if I can't find that, then I'm like, okay, then what is the significance to me? So I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, for me, I think that my process of storytelling is always different. I think that each piece that I'm collaborating with sort of calls for a different kind of process. So I feel like my process is about honoring whatever the story is. I feel like, especially as a director, that role to me is a collaborator. Like it's the glue that brings everybody together just to even like have a discussion. And so I think in terms of process, it tends to be different because every single project is formed differently. But I think a lot of getting to the like root of whatever my personal connection to the piece is, and making sure that is alive every day.
I would say that for myself is I grew up in a family of storytellers. Like everyone, we're all sitting around, having a meal together, and someone's like, well, this guy one time, blah, blah, blah. My uncle tells a story. My auntie jumps in with her story, and then my cousin jumps in with a story. So I was like waiting to get the ball so I could jump in and tell a story. And I always loved it. And my uncle could tell stories that I was just like, that's the best ever. So I always wanted to be better than him. And in that, I think I recognized what good stories were, like by watching and by being super excited around the stories that people told, and then to recognize those in the world and to hear someone tell and read a play and go like, great story. Like I'm immediate, like to know that I'm engaged and to trust that instinct. I think in a leadership role, sometimes you read something, you're like 10 pages in, you're like, do I see the story? Do I know the story? Is it just need work? Is it like, what is the core of this that's going to keep me as an audience member, so I'm not thinking about my grocery list or what do I have to do tomorrow, or I got to pick up that person after. As soon as I disconnect from a play, I often question why, or in a story, even in a movie, like why am I turning off Netflix? And I feel really grateful that I didn't grow up with devices, but I do feel the creeping in of devices, and I'm trying, that's why I said no earbuds, is like to actually just be present in my life now is actually to honor storytelling, because storytelling, it's getting faster and faster, and we're not even I'm watching half of something and stopping it, not even hearing the full thing anymore. So it's like, oh, the full story is so much better when we actually take the time to listen to it. So that's my process. Thanks, great question. Mm-hmm. There's one last question there to the back. Yeah, in the glasses there.
Now that the book has been published, like your play has been published, what happens? Like, what is your relationship to it? Do you know when it gets produced again, or do you get involved, or is it just out in the world?
It's a little bit out in the world, but at the same time, it's not. I think like Annie every now and then will send an email like, here's how things are going. And I've been starting to receive like Instagram messages from people just talking about how much they appreciated the story, or like, oh, hey, I just got my copy in the mail, or hey, we're going to be studying it at my university, and like, I want to ask you questions. So that's a little intimidating, but very cool at the same time. So I think that's part of it. And then I will be as like part of future productions as people want me, and my schedule allows. But I think like if people want a playwright's perspective or insight, then I would happily, like, you know, there's sometimes playwrights who are like, no, just take it, I don't want anything to do with it. But I'm like, I don't know, it's so much fun. I still think it's so much fun and so cute.
I mean, there's several published playwrights in here, and I think there is a process of knowing when it's your first play or it's the first time it's published, you want to be kind of part of everything. And then as time goes on, it's actually an exciting thing when something happens outside and you're like, go and do that thing. I don't know what you're going to do with it, but good luck with that, because I'm now excited about this other thing I'm working on.
Yeah.
But it's also weird because it has its own life, and so you're gonna suddenly, someone's gonna walk up to you and say, oh, Joelle Peters? And you're like, yes, and you're in the grocery store and they're like, I studied your play in university and I just moved me. It was my most favorite thing in the 4 years I was at university. Like, you're gonna have that experience now.
And then I'll cry.
And then you cry. But it's like the play lives beyond you in a way, and it becomes something to other people. And then you go and see a production that absolutely is the opposite of what you thought it was. You're like, I don't know how they came to that conclusion. You know? And that is a wonderful experience too. That you understand now that people take that play and love it, and then they get to interpret it how they, because you've put it out into the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very exciting. I think are we good? Unless there's another question. Is there any other questions out there? Last call for questions? Yes.
I'll ask a question.
Sure.
I'm curious to know, what do you do when you're in creative funk?
Ooh.
Great question.
How do you either embrace that and let yourself relax, or how do you move past it?
Question is, how do you get out of a creative funk? Like, how do you work through it? How do you embrace it? How do you work through it? Yeah? Anybody?
I mean, partially that's why it took 5 years for me to write the play. I didn't want to rush it. I knew there was excitement from myself, but also from like the collaborators who were talking to me about it, and like Phelan. But I knew there were parts that like I didn't know yet. I knew that I didn't know. So as much as I wanted to like take on every opportunity to like continue, I knew that I had to allow myself to live a little. I had to go back to the res myself, and I had to spend time in community and like hear my dad tell ridiculous stories about like French fry or whoever. And yeah, I think it was just, I don't know how I did it, but it just really instinctual to let it marinate. And trusting it'll come.
I think that's a great place to end. Thank you, Joelle, for writing this absolutely beautiful play. If you have a chance, folks, and you want to read it, you can purchase it over here. Brandon will be over there, and so will Annie. Thank you, all three of you, for being up here. Yeah, we're around, so if you have any other questions that we didn't get to, feel free to come up and ask them. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all our social media platforms, and if you need more information, go to our website.